Happy Sabbath, everybody. It's good to see you. God is always good to us. His mercy is everlasting, and we can count on him. By the way, Marilyn, thank you for making the bulletin for us week after week after week after week after week. And, we all sometimes we think that it's just kind of an automatic memograph machine, but we know it takes effort to update it. Thank you. Sending the right message. Have you ever asked yourself what message you send? You wonder what I'm doing, don't you? It sends a message if I let this ring during the sermon. Yeah, that's right, I would. And yet I use the phone for about everything. And heaven forbid if I lose this phone. You need to back up your contacts, your programs that you've purchased already on it, your different things. Sending the right message. It's really vital that we send the right message. That we don't send doubt. Oh, we all have our moments when we talk to each other and go, meow, 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 meow. Oh, it's going to be fine. It's kind of like a moment of catharsis, and then you're back on track. I have found the best group to gossip to. The cows. They don't care. Their tail swishes at the flies. You can give them the message, and they kind of look at you and smile, thankful for the cake you brought. And they say, go on, rave on, madman. Appreciative. What kind of message do we give? I'm grateful for Max Licado's book, He Chose Nails. And there's a story that I've told part of before, but we need to go a little further with it. G.R. Tweed looked across the Pacific. The waters on the horizon, there was an American ship that he could barely make out on the water off in the distance. Brushing the jungle sweat out of his eyes, he swallowed deeply and made his decision. This would be his escape. He had been there for some time, hiding on Guam for 3 years. By the way, Guam is now a part of the North American Division. That has been a change. Happened recently, in the last few years. And he found himself there. The only thing he could think of, when the Japanese occupied the island in 1941, he ducked in the thick tropical brush. Survival hadn't been easy, surviving in the wild on your own. But he preferred that to the POW camp, where they indiscriminately killed people at the time. Late in the day, on July 19, 1944, he spotted a friendly vessel. He scurried up to the top of the hill, positioned himself on the cliff, reached into that old packet that he had, and they used to have a little looking glass about that size, and it was slipped in a little slip, and he pulled it out, and he hoped he'd get it to work. He wiped it off, and he began to aim it in the distance. Try to get it to flicker the light. And when I was reading the story again this week, I wondered how he knew if he held the ... or a ... But with the Morse code, he began to send at 6:20 p.m., holding to the edge of the mirror to his fingers the 3 short flashes, then 3 long, then 3 short ... .. It's the international signal for what? SOS, help. And the signal cost the eye of a sailor on board the USS McCall. A rescue boat took off soon, a dinghy, motorized, and found their way past the guns and came to him. Unless you think that this is far too fetched, I want to remind you that messages can now be sent by light quite commonly. Has anybody been to your house recently talking about the fiber optics that they are putting into Ellis County? Well, probably not if you live in Texas, but they came by the farm. Would you like us to run fiber optics out here? Now, Marilyn, this was not like when they came asking about the telephone and well, who would need it. I mean, yeah. Our question was, how much will it cost? Well, sir, we will bring it right across the road, down the driveway here by these evergreen trees, come underneath the road, and put it right here on this gray box where the telephone copper line used to go in. It will be right on your house. And if you and the missus would like to have that done this time while we're doing it, it will be of no cost to your family. Well, do we need to sign up to have it connected right now? No, we want to know if you want it at no cost to your family now or later on if you'd like to pay to have it buried. I want you to remember something, that salvation comes from Jesus Christ. It cost him plenty, but it's ours as a gift. In 1825, something else happens. See, God intends these things for good, but Satan intends them for evil. Calvary was about God's goodness. And yet we look at it through certain eyes and people say, well, that was sure evil. It allows those of us as sinners to have redemption. You probably remember that in 1925, Morris returned to Washington to paint the portrait of Marquis de Lafayette, the leading French supporter of the American Revolution. While Morris was painting, a hoarse messenger delivered a one-line letter from his father that said, "Your dear wife is convalescent." By the time Morris arrived at New Haven, Connecticut, his wife had already been buried. Broken-hearted that he hadn't known about it sooner, he stopped painting and started pursuing a means of rapid, long-distance communication. And the painter turned inventor actually set up a shop in the Capitol. Morris tested his telegraph prototype, messages being sent between the White House and the Senate, and secured a $30,000 appropriation to run a line from Baltimore, along the Baltimore Ohio Railway from Washington, D.C. to Baltimore. But what most people have forgotten from history is what happened on May 24. May 24 of 1844, a large group, a crowd gathered inside the Capitol to witness Morris tap the message in Morse code, chosen by Annie Ellsworth. Most people to this day don't know that it's a sacred Bible verse. Numbers 23:23. It was relayed back to the Capitol so they knew that nobody had done a shenanigan. It was sent to Baltimore, sent back. What hath God wrought? They were tapping it out. Now, remember that communication can be used for good or for evil. The optics can be used for good or for evil. The mirror can be used for good or for evil. And the naval officer Tweak was glad to have the mirror, glad he knew how to use it, and glad that the mirror cooperated. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. It's important that we understand how the Bible is intended to be used and used correctly. Suppose the mirror had not cooperated. You're going to go, what? Now, here's a crazy thought. Here's a crazy thought. A juxtaposed thought. What if we had mirror opposition? Fake news. What if, suppose, the mirror had resisted, pushed its own agenda? What if, rather than reflect a message from the sun, suppose it had opted to send its own message? After all, 3 years of isolation would leave one starved for attention. Rather than sending SOS, the mirror could have sent LAM. Look at me. An egotistical mirror? What about an insecure mirror? I can't do that. The only crazier thought would be if that insecure mirror would say, well, what if I blow it? What if I crash and burn? What if I'm up in front and get scared? Well, I've been there, done that. What if I send a dash when I should have sent a dot? Besides, if you've seen the blemish on my surface, my goodness, I have acne, scratches, I'm dusty. Self-doubt could paralyze a mirror, you know. It hasn't paralyzed God, and it hasn't paralyzed Jesus. Calvary reflects the love of God for all of us. By the way, we're all broken. It's only by the grace of God we have His Word on salvation, and the Holy Spirit finds sanctuary in our hearts. None of us can say that we are perfect. It's only Jesus living through us that lives that reflective mirror. So could self-pity, of course, being crammed down in the pack, lugged through the jungles, and now all of a sudden expect to face the sun and perform crucial service. No way, staying in the pack. I'm not getting any reflection out of me. Good thing Tweed's mirror didn't have a mind of its own. But God's mirrors? Unfortunately, we do. Unfortunately, we can. We are His mirrors, you know. We are tools of heaven's heliography. Reduce the human job description down to one phrase, and it is this: reflect God's glory. That's it. Oh, how about honor your father and your mother, and thou shalt not steal. Hey, reflect God's glory. I don't know about you, but this mirror needs the Holy Spirit's polish. I need Him. Calvary transcended time and space. I'm going to say that again. Calvary transcended time and space. On Calvary, when Jesus prayed, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, it went eternal past to eternal future. It transcended all time and space. I don't know how many people have died since Calvary or died before Calvary. I don't know. All I know, when he uses the words, Father, forgive, the plural, all the thems, it was like drawing a line with an arrow. At the end of it, goes on to infinity. Matter of fact, he says, your sins I will bury in the depths of the sea, and I will remember them no more. Well, how about tomorrow? How about in 1,000 years? What sins? That is such good news. So I found myself thinking about all of this, and I can't help it. I don't have a sack that doesn't have a picture on it. Order pickup. Pick up your groceries as little as 15 minutes. Those of you who came out to help me yesterday, help me load that hot water heater. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then there's others of you sitting here, and you remember I called, and I said, I hate plumbing, I think. I cannot get this crazy hot water heater to quit dripping. I did the farmer thing. I've been trained to do the farmer thing. I do the farmer thing. The hot water heater was taller than the old one. And so everything was a little shorter than it's supposed to be. So I went out in the barn and I found a good-looking used one. I said, that ought to work. Don't know why that won't work. Screwed it on the line. Made it a little longer. Screwed it on the hot water heater. Tightened it up with the wrench. Oh, yeah. Did the same thing to another one. By the way, I found 2 or 3 of them. And got it all fixed. I was so proud of myself. My reflection, I'm glad nobody was watching but angels. Oh, the Lord, you know it. Janelle will be proud of me. Warm showers tonight. Turn on the water! And it started squirting all over the place. Shut off the water, quick, go turn on the hot water on the sink. Get the pressure off the line, quick. Unscrewed it. Well, it doesn't look quite right. How in the world? It doesn't have any rubber washer in it. Well, who would save something like that? Marilyn, I messed around all Friday afternoon just about trying to get this to quit leaking. I put on the little thingy you put in your garden hose, you know, and then when I tightened it on, they would just kind of twist it up in a knot in there, and it would still leak all over the utility room. Take it back off. Found a little rubber O-ring, put that in there. Didn't help it any. Called Brother Dave. Said, Brother Dave, turn on your camera. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. So I did a FaceTime. Well, you know, it's hard to tell anything FaceTime because the guy on the other end's moving the camera and he's moving the whatchamacallit in his hand. And so he sent out some missionaries. And Tim and Tanner came out to lend me a helping hand. Now, what you don't realize is that before I called Dave, I had to do something. Oh, it was so humiliating. I had to swallow my pride. What farmer can't hook up a hose and keep it from leaking? Lord, one of us is going to have to make up their mind what's about to happen. Tonight, Janelle and I are going to have cold baths. Be memorable. I don't think we've taken actually a water well cold shower in a few days. Years, decades. And Brother Tim and Tanner came out. Hey, looked at the situation. Yeah, it's not supposed to leak like that. What you got? I said, well, I got these. They still got the tag on it. I said, I don't know where it came from. It's out in the shop. I had it there in the cabinet, you know. Before it was done, we agreed there's nothing we could do to fix it. We used Teflon, we used pipe dope, we used garden hose washers. I was really stretched. To tell you the truth, I had a vacuum. I was a mirror that said, huh? Hey, by the way, I've got some pecks out in the garage, out in the shop. Let's go see if some 3/4-inch pecks. I think we can find those tiger, one of the shark teeth thingies that hold it on. Will that work? Oh, yeah, that worked. We got out there, and guess what I could find? Nada. And as we were walking by, all this stuff that's hanging on the wall, it's been there for decades. About a 5-foot piece of this stuff, 2 pieces actually, as we went past it, fell off and hit Tanner in the head. Hey, how about this black stuff? It was just a different color. Well, look at there. Somebody has these special rubber washers in it that have kind of like a cone shape, like that. Now, you don't understand. You're still not getting the message. Let me, if I can make it clearer. I had prayed for help from the Almighty maybe 30 minutes or an hour earlier. Help was on the way. Help hit Tanner in the head. We took it in there. I suppose 15 minutes later it was basically watertight. Well, now, how long did it take you as a mirror to reflect this, Van? All afternoon for me to realize God is the answer. He transcends time and space. We know this as Christians, but we need to apply it. Now, when they saw the boldness of Peter and John and perceived that they were uneducated and untrained men, they marveled and they realized that Peter and John had been with Jesus. By the way, Jesus isn't the answer to all of our dilemmas. In 1964, James Stuart Bell published a groundbreaking paper on the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox that revolutionized the world of quantum physics. Bell disproved the principle of local cases. This means that regardless of distance, everything in the universe is interconnected. The relationship between particles is not always mediated by local forces. It's mediated by the fifth force himself, the one who has risen to the throne of God, that stands on the right hand of the Father, although where it is, I don't know. He is also here. Have you ever heard of twins? One of them has a pain and the other one hurts 1,000 miles away, and you go, well, that's just crazy. I can't explain it all. But it does say that in Daniel 12:1, at that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time, and at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone who's found written in the book. What? Wherever Jesus is today, standing by the throne of God, he's going to stand up. It's telling us that he stands up. Why? There's a time of trouble that's upon us. Time is here, and God stands in behalf of his people. We're fine if we keep our eyes where they belong. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, reflective mirrors. And those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Now, I know this is going to sound wrong to you, but give it a moment. By beholding, we become what? Changed. If we gaze at the disasters and the wars and the death and the travesty, if that's our focus, then we will become like it in attitude. I appeal to you to look to Jesus. Hebrews 12:2 says, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. So, if you want to be discouraged, if you want to feel like the whole world is in the pits, if you can live with that type, then have the news on all you can. But if you want to be encouraged, then know that my Redeemer liveth, and he will be with you always, even to the end of the world. Spend your time looking to Jesus. It says in Revelation 14 and verse 12, this is the New American Standard Version, here is the perseverance of the saints who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus. Or the New Revised Standard Version, there's several different ways they translate it, says, and hold fast to the faith of Jesus. They don't hold fast to their faith, they hold fast to Christ's faith. You're going to say it's a matter of semantics. No, it's not. In time of trial, my faith runs pretty lean. But when Jesus is standing up in behalf of his people from the throne of God, his faith is strong. He stands in behalf of his sons and daughters. It's called a cumulative chi, the word and. We think it means one or the other. You can have this and that. It's a cumulative chi. The commandments, keep the commandments of God and hold fast. I know that my Redeemer liveth. I know that he liveth. I want you to know the one who instituted the speed of light transcended it. But beloved, do not forget this one thing, that with the Lord a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. God can travel back and forth on the time continuum. He's the Almighty. One of the reasons we have such a hard time believing God for miracles is simply because we think of God as being subject to the laws of nature he created and instituted. We can only be in one place at one time, so we suppose he can only be in one place, but he's omnipresent. And the second hand only moved clockwise for us, so it's hard to imagine eternity. But the God who designed our universe with 4 dimensions is not confined to exist within them. He also has a 5th dimension, let alone a God who's omnidimensional. But the second miraculous hint is his superluminal power. Hey, look, if God can turn water into wine, don't you suppose he can turn the beast into beauty? For years, centuries, the classical maximum speed is 186,000 miles per second. And I'll admit, that's smoking. But some experiments suggest now that 2 subatomic particles shoot into space at the result of a subatomic reaction. They always seem to influence each other no matter how far apart they get. What happens to the one particle happens to the other particle superluminally or faster than the speed of light. There is an invisible link between particles that defy the 4 dimensions of time and space. The technical term is instantaneous non-locality. As you probably remember from your history books, Albert Einstein referred to it. That's not a bad definition of prayer. We say a few words right here, either in another dimension or in another place of eternity. God the Father has already received the prayer. The Bible even says it's better than that. In Isaiah 65:24, it says, it shall come to pass that before they ask, I will do what? I will answer. And while they're still speaking, I will hear. Now, won't you admit that's really fast? everywhere at once. During the Vietnam era, the Pulitzer Prize winning photographer took a picture of 9-year-old Phan Thi Kum Phuc. She was naked and running down the road. Those of you who were alive in that era saw when it came out. It was one of the first pictures that ever came out showing the true horrific results of war, at least in modern times. You see, she was running because right behind her was a napalm attack as the fire had just burst into the cosmos. But what you don't realize is the picture haunted the American by the name of John Plummer, Purcellville, Virginia. For Plummer, that picture had significance. In 1972, he was responsible for setting up the air raid on the village of Trang Bang, a strike force approved after he was twice assured that everybody, all the civilians, were out of the area. Plummer said that even though he knew that he had done everything possible to be sure that the area was cleared of civilians, he experienced new pain every time he saw this picture. He wanted to tell Kim Phuc how sorry he was. And sometime between then, that fateful day, he became a Christian pastor, gave his heart to Jesus. In June of 1996, he learned that Kim Phuc was still alive and living in Toronto. She was running naked, for those of you who don't know it. She was running naked because her clothes were on fire. She was burning up alive, and she pulled her garments off. As a little 4-year-old, she pulled her garments off, running down the road, screaming, top of her breath. And shortly after that, she fell in a clump. And the photographers were pouring their canteens of water on trying to put her out and stop the burning sensation. And she was whisked off to a hospital, and the napalm had hit right behind her. It was a horrible situation. For 14 months, she was operated on by a San Francisco plastic surgeon. And finally, Pastor Plummer heard that Kim Phuc was speaking at a Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. He went to hear her say that if she ever met the pilot of the plane, she would tell him that she forgives him, and that they cannot change the past, but that she hoped that somehow they could all work together for the future. Plummer was then able to get the word to Kim Phuc that the man who had ordered the strike was in the audience and wanted to meet her. He came up to her, now a Christian, with the love of Jesus and the empathy and sympathy in his heart. Calvary had made a difference for this man. No longer a warrior calloused with death and pain and sorrow, but a man who has now met Jesus, who can forgive. By the way, if there's someone in your life that you haven't forgiven that has wronged you, let it go. Forgive him so the monkey gets off of your back and Jesus can take care of it. He says, and I quote, "She saw my grief, she saw my pain, she saw my sorrow," Plummer wrote in an article for the Virginia Advocate. "She held out her arms to me and embraced me. All I could say was, 'I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just so sorry.'" And he said, "I said it over and over and over again, unashamed that I was so sorry." And at the same time, she was crying, saying, "It's all right. It's all right. I forgive. I forgive. Scarred. I forgive." Plummer learned that although she was raised a Buddhist, Kim Phuc became a Christian in 1982. Now, you're not hearing me yet. The mirror is to forgive and let God deal with the issues. Through him we transcend time and space, circumstances. Forgiving allows the burn scars to become glory marks from the redeeming love of Calvary. Friend, question. How shall we escape if we neglect so great a salvation? On this day and this hour, this is the day to be passionate about our salvation, to commit to the faith, commandments, and love of Jesus. May God bless you as we go into the community and be the reflective mirror of Christ Jesus.